That is a public hearing on the ordinance repealing the ordinance to establish a bill of rights for homeowners in the city of Lynn.
We're going to open the public hearing for those wishing to speak in favor. We have a lot of folks here tonight, so we ask that your comments be mindful that there's some folks behind you who want to speak as well and in favor. So, and if there's any written testimony and you plan on just reading the written testimony, we suggest us to submit it to Councilor Trahan, who can press forward and we'll disseminate that to the councilors if that's more helpful to make things work. So, open the public hearing for those wishing to speak in favor. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? No, I guess you're right. Anyone wishing to speak in favor?
How about the hand raise if everyone's in favor?
Yeah, I don't want you to speak in favor. I'm inviting the opposition. No, I think you don't. Yeah, I don't think you're in favor. Confusion, I apologize. Anyone, no one wishing to speak in favor? I close the public hearing for those wishing to speak in favor. I open the public hearing for those wishing to speak in opposition. Don't be shy, Isaac. And just state your first name, your last name, and your address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Nicole Summers, and I'm an attorney at Northeast Justice Center here in Lynn. I work with former homeowners and represent them in post-foreclosure eviction proceedings. Based on my experience here, the Preventing Unnecessary Vacancies provision of the Bill of Rights for Homeowners, Section 14, is extremely beneficial for Lynn residents. It helps prevent unnecessary vacancies and stabilize families and communities impacted by the foreclosure crisis. As you're aware, the Supreme Judicial Court recently issued its decision on ordinances adopted by the City of Springfield, which, similar to the Homeowner Bill of Rights, but not identical, require mediation and the securing and maintenance of foreclosed properties. The court found that those programs conflicted with state laws and therefore could not continue. However, the court's decision did not address programs such as preventing unnecessary vacancies with Section 14. In contrast to the bond and mediation programs, there is no state law that conflicts with the Preventing Unnecessary Vacancies provision, Section 14. The only state law that addresses eviction after foreclosure instead explicitly allows for cities to enact ordinances like this one. Thus, although the decision is unfortunate for the bond and mediation provisions of the Homeowners Bill of Rights, it has no effect on Section 14. Eliminating the mediation and bond provisions of the ordinance is sufficient to ensure compliance with the court's decision, and the Preventing Unnecessary Vacancies provision can and should remain intact. Thank you.
I live in 5 Marshall Court in Lynn, Mass. And I'm a homeowner. And I thank for Lynn United for standing with us because we were about to have our own foreclosure last year. And the mediator helped us to modify our home, which gave us a great reduction. And I'm asking y'all to stand with us, for this because everybody needs their homes. Everybody needs to stay in their homes. And it'd be nice of y'all to stand with us. It'd be pleasing for a homeowner and all who lives in the apartments and all that. I thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Julie Carota. I'm my husband, John. We reside at Eastern Avenue, 363 Eastern Avenue. We were faced with problems with our loan servicing company, and what it is, they kept selling out from one to the other, only to find ourselves with this automated voicemail trying to receive answers of who was servicing our loan. So we're grateful to Lynn United and the attorneys that have assisted us through mediation that we were able to open up a line of communication with Auckland Loan Servicing. Up to that point, it was horrible for us. We lost many nights of sleep based on the fact that we were being outsourced to other countries. We were being outsourced to Mexico, India, I believe, and Uruguay, only to find ourselves that the rep from Uruguay was asking us all types of personal questions that we got scared. Now, we did not fall behind in our payments. It was just that we were scared to release all this information based on the fact of all the situations you hear of people taking personal identity and et cetera. So we started putting our payment in an escrow. But the bottom line is, if it wasn't for Lynn United confronting us to even let us know, we didn't even realize we were in foreclosure. It was just that the bank kept postponing answering our questions. So, and if it wasn't for the mediation, we were one of the fortunate families that could go through mediation. And that opened up a direct line right to Auckland and their reps. So right now, we are negotiating modification. And we went into this only to lower our mortgage, to find us into this nightmare of a descending way of handling our payments and getting it to the appropriate loan servicer. So I'd like the council to consider our neighbors and those that haven't been as fortunate to go through mediation. Mediation worked for us, and I know for some of our other neighbors. But the fact that none of us want a free ride, we're there to pay for our homes. We need your assistance in helping the neighbors that do want to stay in their homes, even if it means paying rent to those big banks. The big banks don't care about any of us. They don't care about the city of Lynn either. We noticed, we talked about the snow removal. A lot of volunteers went around to check on homes. Some of the banks, they're the ones that are owning these homes, and they're not snowed out, the sidewalks aren't plowed or anything. So the banks do not care about any of us, including the community of Lynn as well. Thank you.
I live in 39 Maple Street in Lynn, Massachusetts. I've been living in Lynn for the past 14 years, and pretty much I'm living nightmare that everybody's here for. I started with Wells Fargo, then they sold it to Countrywide, and then Hispanic sold it to Bank of America, then Bank of America sold it to Greentree, which is my nightmare right now. So just to make this story short, they keep asking me for more money, and every time that I send them more money, they say everything will be fine, and then next month it's like, you owe another $3,000. And then the next time I send them, I get another second job to pay the $3,000, and then it's like, oh, we need another $1,000 on top of it. So finally, like they say, I got an orange envelope in my house one day. I opened it, and it was from Salem in Lynn United, saying that it would offer me help to this mediation costs and stuff like that, which I was one of the lucky persons to be able to get into the mediation calls. And it's been for the past 3 to 4 months that we've been with the phone calls, and it's working for me at this time. Hopefully, at the end of the month, we hope to get a final call to say that the mortgage has been reduced, or at least a percentage of the house. So hopefully I will be able to keep my house, which I've been living in the house for the 14 years. And I also work for the city of Lynn, which is my house, my home, and I would like to keep it that way too. So please help.
Good evening, I'm Isaac Simon Hose, Lynn, Massachusetts, 28 Flint Street. I think that people are going to look back years from now and wonder why wasn't more done at the national level. When this mortgage crisis hit, when the recession hit, and when cities like Lynn were being really harmed. And all the way back in 2009, U.S. Senator had an answer to that. This is Dick Durbin from Illinois. He said, the banks are still the most powerful lobby on Capitol Hill, and they frankly own the place. That's not me or an advocate, that's a United States Senator that said that. And not enough was done at the national level, and that left cities like Lynn to deal with the fallout. But I want to look back to 2013 and 2014, when a really broad coalition of people from all backgrounds across Lynn came together, and we came to the city council, and the city council took action. And the city council of Lynn, I think, should be proud, and I know I was proud as a lifelong Lynner, to see what happened. It's that you all did stand up and take action. that you passed one of the strongest anti-foreclosure laws in New England. And as you just heard, each of the people you just heard testify about being in mediation, the piece behind those mediations that they didn't necessarily mention was none of that would have been possible without the votes you took a year or 2 years ago. And it's made a real difference. That mediation program and the outreach that it's enabled us to do has saved homes. It's made the difference for families like George, like Julie and John, and like many others. It's meant that they're in their homes instead of foreclosed, evicted. It's made a difference for children who are still in their schools instead of being bounced out. It's made a difference to neighborhoods that don't have as many vacant buildings on them. It's made a difference to people who sunk their life savings into a down payment, often on their first home, ended up in a predatory loan, and could have lost it all. But your actions in that program have kept them there. So we want to thank you all for those actions. And I do want to just add that we often talk about Lynn, the city of first. And I just want to add that this is the first municipality in the state of Massachusetts to actually implement a mediation program. And it took the combined effort of the city council, of MDRS and Salem, which provided the mediators, and Register of Deeds John O'Brien played an important role. And together, we were the first city to show this really can work. And I also want to add that that worked at no cost at all to the city of Lynn. So the reason we're here tonight, as I think everyone knows, is the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts made a ruling that we see as very negative, and it does have an impact on the mediation program and the foreclosure bond program. And that's a setback. And Lisette, who was the last person to speak, mentioned she's in the middle of mediation right now, and we don't know what kind of impact that'll have on her and on many other people who are either waiting for mediation to start or who might end up in foreclosure in coming months. But we do know that we're going to keep struggling, we're going to keep fighting, we're going to keep organizing and bringing people together to find some way to stay in our homes and to save our neighborhoods from all these foreclosures. So we're going to keep at it. And what we're here tonight to ask the City Council is for you to keep at it together with us. We know that 2 years ago the banks didn't own this place, and we don't think they do now either. We know that you're there for the City of Lynn, and you can see some of the signs, and I think that one sums it up. It says, "You saved homes." You did. So stay strong and keep Section 14. As Nicole, the attorney from Northeast Legal Aid, mentioned, that section is not affected by the Supreme Judicial Court ruling, so we're asking you to preserve that section. It'll prevent even more vacant homes from popping up in neighborhoods across the city, and it'll give us a tool to keep organizing and keep struggling to keep families where they belong in their homes in Lynn. And this will have a real impact. There are at least 2 families in here and others around Lynn whose continued residence in their homes depends on that section of the law. And without it, we'll end up with another vacant, rotting, without the snow cleared. With it, those families have a fighting chance to at least stay, pay rent, maintain the home. And we hope that you'll take that into account. So again, we appreciate what you did, and we hope you'll stay with it and continue to fight as best you can. So I want to thank everyone for coming out, and I want to thank the City Council. We hope you'll stay with Section 14.
If you could, by show of hands, those who couldn't speak tonight, or didn't want to speak tonight, or would like to express their opposition to the proposal before you, if you'd like to raise your hands for the record. The record to reflect the majority, if not the entire room, has their hands risen. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one wish to speak in opposition, to close the public hearing. For those wishing to speak in opposition, to close the public hearing. What is the wish of the council? Councilor Ford.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Rhodes, for mentioning John O'Brien, because without him, this would have gotten started, so he was so important to lead it to this point. Thank you.
What's the wish of the council? There needs to be a motion for something. There's been a motion to approve. Second. Any discussion, Councilor Capano?
I'd like to make a motion for an amendment to the repeal.
Motion to amend, and what is the amendment?
I got amendment for the record. The amendment basically repeals the homeowner bill of rights, except for section 14. I gave copies to most of the councilors. If you want me to read it.
Not at all. Section 1, the mediation program established pursuant to Section 4 of the ordinance titled in the year 2014, an ordinance amending the ordinance to establish a bill of rights for homeowners in the city of Lynn is hereby suspended. Repeal of sections. Section 3 through 12, mandatory mediation before foreclosure on residential properties, and Section 13, securing and maintaining vacant, foreclosing, and foreclosed properties of the above ordinance are hereby repealed.
Councilor Capano? Did I take that in the form of a motion for the discussion?
That's like comment.
How about we take it as a motion to approve?
Okay.
And then we'll second it, and then we'll open up for discussion.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Motion to approve, second. Discussion.
I just want to say one thing. I mean, a lot of us have worked real hard on this. I know a lot of departments work hard on this too. And, I'm just really proud of being a part of this council that, supported something like this. Like it was said earlier, no one else in the state has done anything like this. And, this is, to the fact that a court struck this down in Springfield doesn't mean that, we've been defeated. I mean, this is a fight. This is a fight against the big banks. This is a fight against Citibank, Wells Fargo, who could care less about anybody in the city of Lynn. Their argument that this should be done on the state level is a bogus argument. They fought this at the state level too. The weak provisions that are at the state level now are because of the banks. And hell would freeze over if we left it up to the banks to take care of the people in the city of Lynn.
Law department to approach. We ask to address the council. Please state your name and your occupation.
James Lamar, attorney for the city of Lynn.
Thank you.
In 2012, Councilor Capano actually came to me with the idea of starting this mediation program. We worked together for a period of 3 years until we passed this order of the body on 2 separate occasions. Some amendments were made about approximately a year ago this time. As been mentioned earlier today, in December of 2014, the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts struck down a similar ordinance in the city of Springfield. It was voted 7-0 by the SJC. There's no further appeal from the Supreme Judicial Court's decision in December of 2014. Our office has opined on February 5th, looking at the law and looking at the clear mandate of the SJC's decision, that issues relating to foreclosure and evictions should be done at the state level. And that is the clear mandate from the SJC directed to not only Springfield but the city of Lynn. It is the unanimous opinion of the city of Lynn Law Department that if Section 14 survives, the city of Lynn will be sued, the city of Lynn will be unsuccessful, and the city of Lynn will expose itself to several $100,000 in judgment. Any further questions?
Attorney Lamont, if I may, from the floor. Attorney Lamont, what have the cities of Springfield and Worcester, as a result of the law
spoken to the city solicitor in Springfield and Worcester, and they both intend to repeal the ordinance forthwith in its entirety.
Any further questions for Councilor Brown?
I just believe that this part of their program, you know, this wasn't part of their program. The judge didn't rule on this part of the program. And I think that, you know, like I started to say earlier, you know, I don't think that, you know, them doing that to, the court doing that to the Springfield ordinance means that we should consider ourselves defeated. I think that it's part of a larger fight. No one else is gonna do this. We plan on taking this to the state. We've already been to the State House. I've met some state legislators there, and they're interested in filing legislation. They said they would file legislation, enabling legislation that would give cities and towns the local option of having this type of ordinance. So I think we do. We bring the fight to the State House. But I don't think that means that we have to repeal, we don't have to go out of our way to repeal things that aren't necessary. This is a section that wasn't addressed. And I think that the banks could care less about the vacant homes, the pillaging of copper and other items in these houses, the boarded up houses, the unshoveled sidewalks. They're not in our cities and towns helping us out. We can't get a hold of them the same way that most of the people in this room can't get a hold of them when they're trying to get information about their mortgage. Someone has to take up the fight. The banks had a bailout. The people didn't have a bailout. We have a chance to put up a fight here. And it's a question of how far we want to go. We went pretty far to pass this ordinance. Why stop now? What do we get to lose? We go to court and we lose? Maybe not. We haven't lost anything yet. We haven't lost any, you know, the program itself didn't even cost the city any money. And we've helped 35 Lynn families. 35 Lynn families. And we would be helping a lot more, you know, it was the opinion of one judge. We got a favorable ruling earlier by another judge. You know, one person is deciding what's going to happen here. There's no guarantee that that what we're doing here, the course of action that we would pursue in keeping Section 14 and then going to the State House would hurt us in any way. It can only help the people in this city. We're not taking into account the loss that we're getting of the homes in our neighborhoods that are falling in disrepair. We have a program for that we set up here, that we voted for, and we have a chance to keep it. I think we should.
That was a wonderful response to it. I totally agree with you. I don't think we should turn, we were here before to help the people. I don't think we should turn our backs on them now. As it is, we're taking away the mediation, which is maybe going to hurt them a little. Let's not, throw them out of their houses. I don't think it's the right thing to do. There's so many reasons not to. Like Councilor Capano said, the buildings become vacant, become a trash dump. Everybody that drives by with a pickup truck with rubbish on it, they steal from the things. It just, it just ruins the quality of life to a good neighborhood by, one bad house. So I just can't see us turning our backs on them. They have kids in the schools, they've made their, families here, they live in their home, a lot of them work here. I think that we should, stay the fight, repeal the mediation, keep the, keep the courts away, and keep, continue to fight to, let the people stay in their homes for as long as we can.
Just for clarification, from the amendment that you offered, it appears that you're
requesting that we suspend some portions of it and repeal other portions. Can you explain exactly what, how many officials?
Yeah, it says suspend, repeal, it's the repeal of the sections, the whole ordinance except the section 14. That's my intent.
Any laws, rather than this particular language, I just want to make sure that all the believe what's in front of us is what we're voting. If one of the lawyers could just, I'll just take a brief recess and allow you.
It appears section 1 of this amendment suspends the mediation program, it does not repeal it. Again, it's the advice of the law department in order to avoid significant liability on the part of the city. Repeal this ordinance and it's retired. Section 1 suspends the mediation program without repealing it. Section 2 repeals sections 3 to 12 and should let the city council be aware that there is currently a lawsuit pending in Worcester where the named plaintiffs are seeking the return of all mediation fees. That figure would be in excess of $200,000. So there is an ongoing lawsuit at this time, and again, I stress to this council, it is the law department's unanimous opinion that by keeping section 14, we're exposing the taxpayers, the citizens of the land, to a large jury verdict or a damage award.
Councilor Coach.
Mr. Lombardo, if we got to lose the court, how do we have to get fined? How do we have to pay $200,000 for what?
There's a possibility we'll seek to be all fees paid to MDRS banks that would file suit. There are people who sell their property post foreclosure, unable to evict persons that are residing at the property. I would also suggest that section 14, if that is the only section that survives, does not call for the payment of any rents post foreclosure. Those are sections that are referenced in other portions of the ordinance. So section 14 by itself cannot legally work.
I would like to call Eloise Lawrence from Harvard Law Project to work on this mediation program.
Motion to suspend the rules to allow. Motion made, seconded. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. State your name and your last name or address, please.
My name is Eloise Lawrence. I'm an attorney at the Harvard Legal Aid Bureau, and I live in Brookline, Massachusetts. Thank you for letting me speak. As you all know, I have been retained by the City of Lynn and been representing the city in the litigation that's at hand here. And so I just wanted to give just a clarification on a few points that Mr. Lamana, my brother, has raised with all of you this evening. I don't believe that this will, if the ordinance is repealed with respect to the mediation and the bond ordinance, I do not believe that the just cause piece, the section 14, is at all relevant. And I don't believe that the Supreme Judicial Court's decision is controlling in any way. I don't believe, and it is my opinion, and only one lawyer's opinion, and with a bunch of lawyers you'll always get different opinions, but it is my opinion that you are not exposing the city. Of course, someone could potentially sue, but you know that. Someone can always potentially sue. But there's no hundreds of thousands of dollars at stake here. I don't understand, even if, in the case of repealing the mediation ordinance, there's no way the city, the plaintiffs who brought this suit, the 7 banks, they haven't paid a dime. Right. You don't owe them anything. Exactly. Nothing. So we're dealing here a little bit with smoke and mirrors, and it's important to stick with the facts. And the facts are, you all have done an amazing thing, and unfortunately the Supreme Judicial Court ruled on the basis of the Springfield ordinance where there was no mediation and no bond ordinance in effect at the time. And so they made bad law. We're stuck with it through the Supreme Judicial Court. But you all do not have to repeal Section 14 to avoid liability. That's just not the case. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. There are not hundreds of thousands of dollars at stake at this point. And it's important also to realize that, just as with the amendment, I think that I agree with Mr. Lamont that the ordinance, section 14, only, you will not be repealing, as I understand Mr. Capano's amendment, if you were to approve it, you will not be repealing the definitions section. Is that section 2 is the definition section. Therefore, section 14 will still work. So I just wanted to clarify that point as well. And as with respect to the suspension piece, I think that was simply, the law will go, your repeal will take away the entire mediation program. That is simply with respect to the operation of the program. The law itself, the legal basis for the mediation program will be fully repealed. I don't think it makes a big difference one way or another, but I don't think the suspension of the mediation program as a program is inconsistent with repealing the law, so that if the legislature, the state legislature, does come along and ratifies what you all have done here, that program could then be reinitiated. Thank you.
We may have some questions from the council.
Absolutely.
Are there any questions from the council? I do have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
One, so you're here in your capacity of representing the city and then on behalf of your client city.
Yes.
In your opinion, that the city has no exposure to any possible lawsuits resulting in monetary damages?
No, that's not what I said, sir.
Please clarify.
I said that the current exposure with respect to the current lawsuit, there is, these plaintiffs do not have any financial claims against the city. That's what I'm saying.
Could that be amended by the plaintiffs?
No, the time to amend their complaint is gone.
Could they bring another lawsuit against the city of Lynn?
Not if you've repealed the offending portions, no.
And the action doesn't give rise, the action to the council today doesn't give rise to the ability of them to say that essentially the facts of the fact pattern has changed, allowing them to seek some kind of amending complaint?
For what purpose?
For the purpose of there's been some changes to the underlying lawsuit. And the fact that a number of sections have been repealed.
That would only give them less reason to sue.
So you're saying that okay, so the city of Lynn will never pay any money towards any banks as a result of the actions today? Is that your opinion?
No, that's not my opinion. My opinion is that the current pending lawsuit, to solve the problem, the reason to repeal this is to moot the lawsuit out. You will be mooting it. That's my opinion.
So aside from that lawsuit, is there any other exposure from any other parties or plaintiffs?
Can I ever tell you that the city of Lynn is never going to get sued for
But
any
you can't
reason?
say that we won't.
No.
Okay, so you're saying that there's a possibility that litigation...
There's always the possibility that some person could sue. Yes. But that is...
Councilor John.
Thank you. I just had one question. So as long as the banks don't have to go to mediation with these people, they're fine and they leave everybody alone. Is that?
That's what the lawsuit is about.
That's what the lawsuit voted on. They don't want.
They don't want to have to mediate and they don't have to pay a bond. You're taking those things away. You're telling them, fine, you win.
Is there a rebuttal from the law department? This can turn into a court of law.
Next week, I spoke with an attorney that represents several out-of-state banks, looking last week for an update on what the council was going to be doing this evening. I indicated I was fairly confident the mediation component would be struck down and the $10,000 cash bond would be struck down. This particular attorney indicated that there are 3 post-foreclosure evictions that they're handling right now. My sister, who represents the homeowners as well as represents the city, fights these evictions, and the banks have indicated to me that depending on what the council does tonight, they will reevaluate their legal position and would not rule out the possibility to challenge Section 14, violating the Commerce Clause and interfering with advantageous contractual relations.
And just for clarification, the attorneys are not related. The term brother and sister is used within the professional and legal profession. Any other?
Mr. President, through you, members, can I just ask a few more questions to Attorney Milano? In regard, I guess I just want clarification on Section 1 of the amendment. So it's the opinion of the law department that the suspension of the mediation program wouldn't satisfy the ruling of the SJC on this matter?
It's our opinion to minimize exposure and any potential risk for lawsuits, that the ordinance in itself should be repealed. I cannot say that whether any particular bank will have an issue with the word suspension as opposed to repeal. I don't know that. This is the first I've seen that amendment. What was advertised tonight was a complete repeal. But I have had no discussions with banks whether they would have to take issue with a suspension rather than an outright repeal. Suspension does, on its face, sound as if it could be reinstated at a future date.
Thank you. Any other further discussion? If I could, the public hearing is over, so there's no comment from the public at this point. If I could have a motion to suspend the rules to allow me to speak from the chair. So moved. Second. First, I'd like to thank a lot of people who put a lot of time and effort into mediation program and anti-foreclosure ordinance. Obviously, Council Capano has just been a champion, not only the council, but the entire city. He owns the work on this, and he's made a lot of impacts on some people's lives that are just incredible, and really something that I think as all councilors being part of that process, really is just an awe and proud of all the accomplishments that you've had. Probably one of the shining spots in some of the things we've done here in the city council. And of course, we're United for Change, and we've all received the letters and emails and the photographs and the calls from folks advocating. That's how democracy works. So we're glad that folks are participating. And the folks from the Harvard Law program who've competently defended the city of Lynn, and they've done, again, some really amazing things to keep some folks out of harm's way and some real challenging times. Brian Jerome deserves a lot of appreciation. He runs Mass Dispute Resolution. And he, from the beginning, has been on a limb for a lot of folks in this room and in the city of Lynn by helping to set up this mediation program. And he's incurred a lot of costs and incurred a lot of manpower and womanpower. And he has just been, I guess we can't say enough about Brian Jerome and his outfit. They're just top-notch mediators. If anyone's in the audience or at home looking for a top-notch mediator, I wouldn't hesitate to give a great recommendation to him. And also the mayor, in 2014, there were some issues that we had early on regarding the implementation of the foreclosure ordinance. And the mayor of Lynn, despite reservations, came to the table and worked out a lot of those problems. So she also deserves some appreciation in working with us going forward. Probably one of the hardest, definitely the hardest vote, I think, for all these councils, if I can speak for you, over the course of the last 2 years, maybe beyond. What we're faced with today is a lose-lose situation, I feel, for the city and its residents, because I do believe in the legal counsel's opinion that eventually this will be challenged. I think eventually this will not survive. And that's disheartening, because we have seen that this program works with a 100% success rate from what we've been told. And for other folks at different levels of government to not look at that and not say to themselves, this is something that should be implemented at a greater or higher level of jurisdiction, I think that's a mistake. I think they really should take Lynn as a model of some wonderful things that have been going on and really helping not only the residents but the banks. I mean, really, perversely enough, it's always good when the contract that you execute with a homeowner is fulfilled, that people are paying their mortgages again. So, again, this makes it a very difficult choice for a lot of councils. I know I've been staying up at night since the decision has come down, but I just don't know how I was going to vote on this. I'm an attorney too, so I'm pain in the butt as well when it comes to things like that, and you do get enough lawyers in the room and everyone does have a different opinion. I have not been satisfied with any case law or statute that would lead me to believe that this ordinance would not, even amended, be overturned. I wish it was different. I've said from the beginning that I would support any efforts at any other level. I testify, I march, I do whatever you need me to do, because I really do believe this is a great program. But unfortunately, what would happen when I talk about a lose-lose is if this is challenged And we are, as the city, asked to pay such things as legal fees. Banks don't hire cheap law firms, they just don't. It's hard for me to, after the opinion of the law department, vote on something I feel will not be successful, only to turn around and potentially spend hundreds of thousands of dollars of our money, really, to feed the attorneys of the banks. That's money that could be spent on our schools, our police, our fire. We're not a rich city, and we've had some bad lawsuits over the last couple of years that have cost us a lot of money, and that's money that maybe could have spent otherwise. So I deeply respect everybody in this room and their situations and the things they've gone through. I support the foreclosure ordinance as was proposed, but I will be voting against the amendment because I think, unfortunately, it's to preserve everyone in Lynn from potential exposure, monetary exposure. They need to do that. But, you know, whether or not your amendment survives, and I feel like it will survive, I think this will make it to the council. I will be voting with you, on the underlying provision, because I think we need to do as much as we possibly can to preserve ourselves from future litigation. If that means suspending 4 and eliminating 3-12, and that's so be it. So I just wanted to explain myself, because I think I owe it to Peter and a lot of folks in the room to explain exactly my sentiment, why I'm going away. Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your comments and your insight as a lawyer. I supported the original ordinance, and it was a very good ordinance. And it's helped a lot of people, and they're here as a testimony to that. We're here, though, as a result of a disappointing decision, and this fight against big banks, essentially, has brought us here. And what we're hearing, though, is that the city could be exposed to a terrible lawsuit. We also heard that until legislation that gives local authority, we shouldn't take this risk. So this is my opinion, and I can't support the amendment either, even though I feel that it's a good provision. And at the advice of our city attorneys, I have to stick with their advice. And I also just want to say I think this is a great thing. I think that what United has done in bringing people together, it doesn't stop here. Whether you're, as Dan mentioned, you may be successful with this provision, and we don't know, we don't have a crystal ball. The court may rule against it again, but don't quit. Keep up this good work, and the kudos Dan gave to everybody, you know, without going through that list, I'm in agreement. So thank you for that, Mr. President.
Council Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the few times that I totally agree with you, and I thought you did a great job. Wayne, I agree with everything he said. I think Peter's done an unbelievable job with this for the last few years. If I was to vote with my heart, I'd be 100% behind everybody in this room. That's it. I vote with my conscience, which I believe is the people who have elected me to this spot. And after listening to the city attorneys, I can't vote in favor of it. I mean, it's one of the first times that I've walked into this room not knowing how I was going to vote. The hardest thing an elected official has to do sometimes is vote against the majority that's in the room, because it's not always the right thing to do. So I commend Peter, I commend everything that Lynn United has done. They're a fantastic group, and it saddens me that there's nothing we can really do at this point. I agree with what you said, Peter, about it's a fight. It's a battle. The war hasn't been lost yet. You still can go to the state, and I'm willing to go over there. I'll stand side by side with you and every one of these people, but I can't do it tonight.
I just, for people that maybe haven't made up their minds yet, it's not unprecedented to if a court that makes a decision like this to go against it. I mean, right now, in cities and towns across the country, I'm not exaggerating when I say are fighting the courts. Right now, in Tennessee, the courts made the minimum wage illegal, and it's a proposal to make the minimum wage illegal. There's a history of voting rights and civil rights that court rulings have made over the years, and it takes, the people willing to change it. And I realize these are tough decisions. I respect all my colleagues here. I understand that, but I think you have to try and put what's going on into perspective. Right now, the corporations, the big banks, are totally dominating society. And I don't mean to say to sound corny or anything like that, but it's a fact. The biggest lobby in Congress is the banks. The same people who are saying we should abide by the state regulations on foreclosure are the same people who fought the state tooth and nail for the weak restrictions that they have right now. People don't have many places that they can turn anymore for violations of civil rights, human rights. It's the local elected leader. I mean, most people vote for president, right? I mean, everyone goes up. The least amount of turnout is at the municipal elections, but we live with people every day, and we see what goes on in the neighborhoods. We feel for the neighborhoods because a lot of them are our friends that we grew up with and family members. And, when people are violated like this, and when they have no recourse, that just leaves the local official to make a decision. And this is the decision that we have to make that I think is the right decision. It wasn't part of the last court decision. And by the way, this city of Lynn hasn't paid a penny, for this, for any of the, mediations. We haven't been sued, and we don't owe the banks any money. There's nothing coming out of our pocket right now. This is a stand. If you had to take a stand, and we've been in court for some outrageous things over the years, this would be one that would be worth the fight.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we go on executive session.
Motion made. What purpose? You could step back that, and we should probably ask the proper procedure of the law department as far as that matters.
Prior to voting to go into executive session, you should state the purpose of going into executive session. Certainly, discussions regarding ongoing litigation and possible future litigation is an appropriate subject for executive session.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Seconds.
Motion is made second. Any discussion? Just like to point out that an executive session is a closed session where members of the council, clerk's office, as well as the law department are able to discuss certain items, one of them being litigation is an exemption from the public meeting law that allows us to be private now. The minutes of that are disclosed to the public after a certain period of time. So this isn't something that is done in secret, never to be revealed. So when said, the minutes are taken, and eventually they are disclosed. So that's what executive session is. So So motion has been made and seconded, Council.
Who would we have in the session, Mr. President? Is there, do we want any other persons on? I would defer to our legal counsel.
I would suggest the counsel from Harvard Law Office as well. She does represent the city. She can give the other side, and there also could be some sensitive topics discussed that could be used either for or against us in future litigation, and we wouldn't particularly want to stay in the open, knowing that there could be a possibility of litigation.
Thank you, Mr. President.
So it would be Eloise from the Harvard Law folks and our folks from the Law Department and the council. And we would be just in the other room. We suggest that people don't leave. We would be meeting in room 402, closed door, and then coming back out. And there will be votes, subsequent votes taken after we come back. So that's been a motion made and seconded. Any other discussion? Roll call to go into the
Council Barton?
Yes.
Yes. Council Cahill?
Yes.
Yes. Council Capano?
Yes.
Yes. Council Jacutis?
Yes.
Yes. Council Calucci?
Yes.
Yes. Council Creighton?
Yes.
Yes. Council Seer?
Yes.
Yes. Council Ford?
Yes.
Yes. Council Lozey?
Yes.
Yes. Council Net?
Yes.
Yes. Council Trahan? Yes. 11 yes.
We are going to be meeting just next door. I suggest you all stay in your seats. We don't want to go anywhere. We won't keep you here very long, I promise that.